Coming up on today's episode of the Money Pants Superpower Hour. Do ribbons, trophies, money, and praise create self-confidence? We contend the answer is a resounding no. Today, we're going to discuss where self-confidence truly comes from and why anyone can develop it. We'll share one easy way parents can support their children's efforts to cultivate self-confidence, and we'll show how this one secret will increase your child's chances of getting a better education, have better relationships with peers and teachers, improve their reputation, and open up future opportunities. All this and more, but first, the joke of the day.
So an old man lived alone in the country, and one spring he wanted to dig his tomato garden, but it was very hard work and the ground was hard, and his only son Max, who used to help him, was in prison. The old man wrote a letter to his son and described his predicament. He said, "Dear Max, I'm feeling pretty bad this year because it looks like I won't be able to plant my tomato garden. I'm getting too old to be digging up a garden plot. If you were here, my troubles would be over. I know you would dig the garden for me. Love, Papa." A few days later, he received a letter back from his son. "Dear Dad, I'd do anything for you except dig up that garden. That's where I buried the bodies. Love, Max." At 4 o'clock the next morning, FBI and local police arrive and dig up the entire backyard without finding any bodies. They apologize to the old man and leave. The same day, the old man receives another letter from his son. "Dear Dad, go ahead and plant the tomatoes now. That's the best I could do under the circumstances. Love, Max." Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Money Pants Superpower Hour. We are your hosts, Hannah and Fontaine Judd, and we're the proud parents of 8 sons and 7 daughters, ranging in age from newborn to college student. We're both BYU graduates and the creators of Money Pants. Head on over to CaptainMoneyPants.com to learn more about what we do and what we're all about. We believe every person on this planet has been given at least one superpower to help them accomplish their unique mission in life. But the only way to unlock those superpowers is through work ethic. That's when greatness happens. And that's where Money Pants comes in. Money Pants is the complete tool set for cultivating work ethic in all aspects of a person's life. Today's topic is all about using the behavior reports. And quite frankly, Hannah, I can't believe we haven't covered this. I get we've mentioned it, but we've never covered how to use it. And this is, we've used this forever.
Confession time. Every time we're done making a podcast, I go, "Oh, we don't have any more to make." And then we have the next week and we introduce the topic and we find out, oh no, we have a lot to say. We have a lot more to say. Yeah, but this has been going on for 40 podcasts now.
Right. So the way I kind of organize it in my brain was we'll do this. We'll first kind of tell the origin of the behavior reports, like the origin story. Every great superhero has an origin story. Well, so do the behavior reports. And then from there we're gonna transition into the next section, which is why would you want to use the behavior reports, and then the next section, the last section would be kind of the specifics, like how to use it, how does it work exactly, ways you can tweak it to make it specific to your whatever situation it may be. And so having said that, let's get into the origin story. Actually, it's kind of 2 stories. It's not one story because the behavior reports have kind of changed over time, but we've been using these forever, basically, where ever since our kids started attending kind of public activities, we realized, and we weren't there, we realized that they needed some sort of way to help them out. And so, I'll just go into this. My daughter Trixie, when she was
9 years old. Yeah, about 9 years old. She had a Sunday school teacher, Brother Moore. Mm-hmm. And Brother Moore was kind of an unassuming guy, not really not really outgoing necessarily.
No PhD in child psychology here, no advanced degrees in human understanding, but
he did have a son that he had worked with who had autism that he had raised.
I think that was the trick.
That may have been why he understood how to work with kids so well, because he had really had to hone in on those skills.
He had the magic formula, Hannah. And Trixie still talks about it to this day. Over a decade later?
As a kid, she would tell me, Brother Moore's class was my favorite Sunday school class I've ever had. And I'm like, really? Why? I was thinking, was he this amazing teacher, whatever? And she's like, well, we would actually learn in his class. And I said, well, why would you actually learn? And she said, well, he had a system. And that everybody wanted to behave and everybody wanted to participate.
Everybody wanted to.
Yeah.
Because of the system he set up.
And she said he's very strict. She says he expects us to be on time to class. We have to have our scriptures and I forget what else, but we had to be prepared. We had to be on time and they had to participate. And they had to raise their hands before they could talk.
So he had like these rules, these specific rules.
Very specific things that he expected, and he explained it to everybody. They knew exactly what behaviors were expected, and he had this chart, and he told them, if you can go 4 consecutive weeks in a row obeying these rules that I set out, I will bring you a chocolate bar after the 4th week that you get it marked off. So it was interesting because it wasn't, every time I'm going to give you a chocolate bar. They had to show the behavior that was appropriate 4 weeks, consecutive weeks in a row. And he kept a chart of it. And my daughter was like, yes, his class was actually more fun than other classes where the kids are
rambunctious.
And she's like, we all got along really well, but we actually had class and we learned, and it was a very enjoyable class.
Now, I remember she got the reward and she brought home the chocolate bar, and it wasn't the $1 candy bar you buy in the checkout line. It was a big old, I think it was a giant Hershey's.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
wow,
nice. But so the reward was significant.
It was significant, but it was like it had to be good behavior on a consistent basis over a period of time to get it. But it worked really well. And so I thought about it and I'm like, there are a lot of good teachers out there. Maybe teachers that are more talented than Brother Moore, maybe, the same or whatever, but who have lessons prepared and things to share, but they don't necessarily have the skills that Brother Moore had in how he set up his class and motivated the students to behave. A lot of school teachers have that, but a lot of times you get teachers or coaches who don't have a system in place, but they still have good things to offer. But managing behavior maybe isn't one of their strong points. And
that was why he was so unique because, like you said, he had an older, almost adult, autistic son. And we talk about this where we've actually had parents mention, they're like, wow, Money Pants seems like ABA for everyone. And it kind of is, really, where these principles work across the board. And that this Brother Moore, just took those principles he had learned raising his one son and applied it to the class, and it worked really well. And Trixie picked up on it, who is not autistic, and she's like, oh, I like that. And she got more out of the class. And Hannah, you had a good comment. You said, because I think inherently kids want to learn, but everyone also wants to have friends, and they also want to fit in. But sometimes if one person is misbehaving, they set the tone, and so the whole class, because they want to fit in, they just follow along and misbehave and end up you join in. I used to do
that, and you don't feel good about yourself afterwards. And I remember distinctly having acted up, particularly when my mom was once my teacher. I would just act up really badly for my mom and was getting attention and being silly. But afterwards, I always felt really bad about myself. And I knew I didn't like how I felt, but I also didn't have the self-control to do something about it.
We were using behavior reports before him, though.
Yes.
That was kind of the solidifying thing. We're like, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
So I guess we're kind of going out of order, but I like starting with that story because of what an effect it had and how clear it was. Like, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
This is definitely a great idea, and we're not alone. So
Brother Moore, like you said, he was kind of catering to the lowest common denominator as far as behavior goes, meaning he was using methods that would work for kids that had more of a challenge with behavior.
Who had behavioral problems.
Yeah, like kids with ADD or autism, where what he was using would work for those kids as well. And so but it also was just as good for kids who didn't have those challenges. So it kind of unified the class in that everybody was trying to behave and able to respond to it.
Well, that was the thing, though. It was brilliant is once he got the whole class on board with this, it really did. It raised the whole class up. It's because then everybody was in a capacity to learn. There weren't distractions, and it just kind of buoyed everybody up. It was kind of cool, and that's why it was Trixie's favorite class. So, but before that, we had used behavior reports to relative success before that. Because we had
just started like the year before that, and the reason we had started was because we did have a kid who was a little more impulsive and loved attention, and would act out, and was kind of strong-willed. And so, didn't mind if the teacher didn't approve of them, the sort of thing. They were at least didn't like being controlled or manipulated at all.
Right.
And it always had to be her choice.
Yes.
What she did had to be her choice. Mm-hmm. So she was attending an activity group for girls her age, and she and the teacher were butting heads big time.
This daughter wanted to be class clown and kept acting out. Like you said, she wanted to be the center of attention and she didn't want to be told what to do. And this teacher wasn't having any of it. And like you said, so they ended up butting heads because this daughter of ours, it doesn't matter what you say or do. She will do what she wants. And so what you have to do is kind of guide her and motivate her to want to do what you want her to do. And it has to be her decision to want that. And so this teacher was like, you're going to do this and you're going to sit here and we're going to be quiet and blah, blah, blah. And this teacher was great, by the way. And
she had all these great ideas and
one of these
activities.
Very talented teachers. And because this one daughter of ours refused to get controlled, she would lash out and act up in class and distract everybody. And it became a power struggle, essentially. It just became a power struggle. And it ended up with her not liking the teacher and the teacher she said to me, I'm not going to that class anymore. That's it. I'm not going. And the teacher was coming and talking to me like, you're going to have to come attend class with your daughter. She's really acting up. The problem, though, is it actually brought the whole class down because the whole class was out of control because this daughter of ours has a very strong personality and as a natural leader, people would gravitate. And like in Trixie's class, everybody kind of follows the leader. And this daughter of ours was kind of setting the tone for the whole class. And unfortunately, it turned everybody to be disruptive. And so the teacher's like, can't have her in the class. This is a nightmare. This just isn't working. Yeah, but you could tell the teacher was like really like struggling to even like our daughter. Like I'm pretty sure she didn't at that point. But that's just it. Our daughter didn't like the teacher because it was this power struggle. Yeah, she had nothing nice to say about this teacher. The teacher talked to me and I said, okay, we're going to try something. I'm going to try something. I'm going to give her a list of behaviors of good manners that I expect. And I want you to be strict with it, but I want you to mark off whether she did these things or not. And I'm going to reward her at home if she can exhibit good manners and control herself. Mm-hmm. And so I offered my daughter, I said, if you can get this behavior report signed, I know you don't like the teacher, but if you can get this behavior report signed, I will give you $1. Every Wednesday when you go, you can earn $1 just by, and I made a list. You need to be on time. You need to stay on task and stay focused on whatever the activity is. Got to be respectful. You got to be respectful. You got to raise your hand when you want to talk. When the teacher's talking, your eyes have to be on the teacher and your mouth closed. And you need to be kind to the other kids in the class. Yeah. And so I sent her with this checklist, and the teacher had to mark it and sign it, and she had to do it in pen. That was the other thing we quickly figured out. It had to be in pen, and sent my daughter to class, and it was
amazing. The teacher immediately, at the first time, she goes, that was great. That was great.
Nothing short of miraculous.
Yes. And within a couple of weeks, my daughter was coming home saying, oh, I like activities. I like these activities. We had a lot of fun.
I like this teacher.
I like the teacher. And as she started getting along with the other kids better and liking the other kids better, she started adoring this teacher. And the teacher started to adore her. And because then she began to enjoy her sense of humor and her enthusiasm and
of which she
her
had
personality.
a lot.
She does. She actually has. She's hilarious. She can be hilarious, this kid. And so the teacher started really adoring our daughter, and they became very close friends.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter became her main babysitter. Outside of this, they started inviting her to activities with their family, her and my other daughter. And it became one of my daughter's favorite teachers.
And a good friend.
What happened there? What happened there? The teacher hated her, and she hated the teacher.
And then all of a sudden, there's this complete 180.
Yeah, and I could have said, "Oh, this is a bad teacher, and this is she doesn't
that's
appreciate my daughter, and she's not connecting with my daughter." No, my daughter wasn't being respectful.
But it wasn't a one-time, one-trick pony. This worked week after week after week, and that's when we knew, this works.
It turned around a very bad relationship into the exact opposite, a very strong and good relationship, one of the best teacher relationships my daughter had ever had.
But also because the teacher was a good teacher, because she knew that her activities were going to go well, she started planning even more elaborate and more fun activities and made my daughter enjoy it even more because the teacher knew that the class was going to go well.
It wasn't going to be a waste of her time.
Right.
Where, she prepared all this stuff and they weren't able to do it because of the behavior problems. And so
it was this
the class
really cool,
actually became more enjoyable because the teacher knew that it was worth her time to come up with cool ideas. It wasn't going to be a complete waste of her time.
And it was this cool upward spiral. And then our daughter became even more supportive of the teacher and helped the teacher and keep the other kids in line, and just this great upward spiral. And because our daughter has such a strong personality, she could keep the other kids in line and make sure they were respectful. And because she respected the teacher, she made sure that the other kids did too. And it just created this really cool upward spiral. Anyway, so that's that's the origin story of the behavior reports. Those two things combined, obviously now it's much more refined, but that's it. That's how behavior reports were born. So that, I guess, that brings us to the second part of the podcast, which is the big why. Why should you use behavior reports? And first of all, that's what a horrible name, like behavior report. Here, son, take behavior report. Like, we changed the name. It's a little different than behavior reports, but that's what it was originally called. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the big why. Why should you use these behavior reports? And it boils down to one word. Aretha Franklin sang about it. So did our favorite movie quote, "You gotta have respect to get respect," by Chris Rock. It's the reason why you do this is respect, and it's twofold. You want to get the respect of others, and you also want to get self-respect.
Yeah. So the quote, you got to have respect. You've got to have respect to get respect. That is what that means is, in the case of my daughter, she needed to have respect for her teacher first before her teacher began to think much of her and began to like her and so forth. But she needed to show the respect in order for her classmates and her teacher to respect her and think highly of her.
Well, and this is what we wrote in the instructions on how to use behavior reports. We wrote this. We said, kids who consistently treat their peers and teachers with respect eventually gain the respect of everyone around them. They actually end up enjoying their classes and activities more when they are behaving well. They learn more and get more opportunities than the kids who misbehave, and they enjoy better relationships. they will begin to enjoy the positive reputations that they develop. So this whole idea of respect of others and respect for others, that's one of the main reasons we use these behavior reports. And we've noticed that even if the other kids may not like you, like if you're being respectful to the teacher, the other kids may not like you for whatever reason, but they have to respect you. And you can't avoid that. It's because of the respect that you show others, they can't help but respect you. They may not like you, but they have to respect you. When you're respectful to these teachers, and when, like you were saying, Hannah, when you show that level of respect, as in the case with our one daughter, it changes how others treat you in return, and also changes what opportunities are available to you. If you're disrespectful and you're the class clown, or you're goofing off, or you're interrupting, you're causing misery for the teacher, that's going to come back to you.
Well, it's always an eye-opener, I think, to high school students when they have to start applying to colleges and they realize that they have to get referral letters.
Letters of recommendation.
Letters of recommendation from their teachers.
And their eyes bug out.
And
all
of a sudden they go, oh, that teacher doesn't like me. Which translates into, I wasn't well behaved in their class. And they have to go, okay, who was I well behaved for?
Yeah.
And that's the teacher they go to, and they're like, was I well behaved? Does that teacher like me?
Oh,
and
snap.
did I set a good impression? But I wish they would kind of like make that clear earlier on to the kids that they were going to need that, because it's kind of this awkwardness when they go, oh. Yeah. And then when they get the letters of recommendation, like our daughter Trixie, she's been getting her letters of recommendation this year, and she's a well-behaved kid. Like,
she's respectful.
Yeah, she's respectful. But even she was nervous. Like, oh, I wonder what they're going to say. And so when they gave very positive reports, it was just like, I know it filled her with I'm so glad I participated in their class and I was respectful, and what happens is that opens up doors to colleges and also job opportunities as well.
Well, and the interesting thing was that there was one teacher who actually made a commentary to her about not being on time, that is a form of disrespect. Now, it wasn't her fault, because she was waiting for other things. It wasn't her ability to be on time. It wasn't totally up to her.
She was trying to be on time.
That was actually one of the sticking points for this professor, who thought she was great in all other respects, except for there's this one little issue of being on time. And it was kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, you should have been on time. But still, that was a little thing where he picked up on that.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes right into what we were talking about. You've been the etiquette class.
Yeah,
you want to talk about that?
So recently I wanted my kids to start learning etiquette. So
no, Hannah, not recently. We've been trying to get them into cotillion for years, and it just hasn't happened.
So I started looking at other avenues.
We finally had to give up and try a different thing.
So I found that there are classes on Udemy. And
I think it's pronounced you dummy.
You dummy. I know, it's a funny name.
Udemy?
Udemy?
I
think it's like academy, but for you.
Udemy?
But it sounds like you dummy. Here, we're going to teach you some things, you dummy.
Maybe.
But anyway, so on Udemy, there's a class, the first class that we've taken is the British etiquette class. And it's the Kensington finishing school in Great Britain. And so the teachers there, they're teaching a very basic etiquette class. And so...
Now, this surprised me, because I'm thinking, how to hold your fork, or how to tie your ascot, or how to enter a room. Like, I was expecting that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think those are more advanced skills. And
instead,
instead, they're like, okay, they're emphasizing the importance of being on time. And being prepared, and then how to carry yourself and how to dress and present yourself so that you create a good first impression. So they're like, okay, you have one chance to make a first good impression. And so let's talk about your hygiene. Is your hair washed? Is it styled and cut? Okay. Are your fingernails clean? Are your shoes scuffed up? Are your clothes clean and fresh? Do
your
you
clothes-
smell good?
Do your clothes fit properly?
Yeah, do you smell good? Okay. And then, all right, how are you standing? How do you talk to other people? And what's the expression on your face and things like that, where and they explain the importance of when you meet somebody for the first time, these little cues of, were you on time? How did you dress? Were you dressed appropriately for the occasion? These things matter.
These are the people, though, that are teaching and training royalty and the upper class. And these are the basics that they all know.
Yeah.
Is how to be on time, which really surprised me, to be prepared, and then to hold yourself properly. And like you said, Hannah, where how you look and how you hold yourself, and if you smell good.
And how you treat people. But it's just basic things where I thought it was something fancier or...
And I'm sure we'll get there, but...
I thought it was something fancier. But anyway, so it's been kind of an eye-opener to me, where now I'm like, okay, I need to overcome my habit of being late to things.
But they brought up a good point. And there was a commercial years ago where it was like, I think it was a deodorant commercial where you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Or maybe it was a shampoo. I don't know. It was like an 80s commercial, but it's true. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And they talk about that in this Kensington finishing school, why it's so critical to, from the get-go, to set up the relationship. And and you want that relationship of mutual respect. And you're the one who's giving it.
Yeah. And so as we demonstrated with the story with our daughter, who started off on a bad note. And
started off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, really started off on the wrong foot. She got a second chance. And that relationship was able to turn around. And that was very fortunate. And that's good. So don't get discouraged if you realize, gosh, I kind of messed up.
The relationship's ruined. No, that's not what it means.
But it's a lot more effective to start off on a good note from the beginning. It's way more effective. And so what we've found since then is that when our kids are meeting any teacher for the first time, it's very helpful to start out with a behavior report from the get-go.
Right. Well, no, because I remember when I changed schools and social group, I think it was 7th grade. And I was like, I have the opportunity, because I was a boisterous kid, and I was kind of acting up because I was put in the special class, the advanced class, whatever. So I thought I was all that, and I would kind of act up in the remedial classes because it was below me, blah, blah, blah. And so in 7th grade, I got put into a new school in a new town, and nobody knew me. And I knew I had the opportunity to reinvent myself. And I remember that feeling of relief of, okay, I have a fresh start. I'm not going to mess it up. And that's kind of like what we're helping our kids with when they start that new class. Every time you start a new class or start a new relationship, you have that, you're starting over. You're starting fresh. Why not give them that behavior report to help them make sure that they become and act like the person that they want to be?
But yeah, I noticed even beyond the behavior reports, like making sure their hair looks extra nice and their clothes look extra nice.
Well, what's the rule,
making
Hannah?
that first good impression.
We have our kids, their clothes have to be clean and they have to be modest. So, but that leads into the second part of the respect, and that is once you've kind of covered the respect of and the respect for others, you've got self-respect. We talk about this, where your son or daughter's self-confidence and self-respect increases when they're making good decisions. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking they can build their child's self-esteem by giving them trophies or telling them how wonderful they are. The reality is, self-esteem comes from making decisions that are correct and good. If you want to see your child's self-esteem improve, one major way to do it is to use these behavior reports, where they have the opportunity to make the decisions to do what's right. Okay, it drives me crazy. The current mentality is that you can build your child's self-esteem. I hear that, I read that, and it's not true. It's just, you cannot build your child's self-esteem. You can't do it. because it's an internal thing. It's not external.
Well, I had that one friend who's, when I was a kid, whose dad was a psychologist, and that whole idea that you could build self-esteem by telling your child how wonderful they were, that would build their self-esteem. It wasn't working. It didn't work. That wasn't an internal thing.
Is this the
for
volleyball
him.
kid?
Yeah, this is the volleyball kid, where the dad just was like, "You're great at it. You're wonderful. You're great at it."
What was happening?
He couldn't catch a ball, or
why is he catching a volleyball?
Like he couldn't hit the ball to save his life.
Okay, so he's playing volleyball and his dad's watching?
His dad was playing on his team and just was telling him, "That was wonderful. That was great." And he'd like totally miss it. It was coming right at him. He'd totally miss it. And his dad would say, "Great. That was so good." And he kept yelling it. And it was like embarrassing him more and more. And it was actually, he was getting worse and worse. And I remember feeling so sorry for my friend that his dad was saying that, but I knew that his dad was a good guy and he was trying to help his son. But I also could see this isn't what his son needed. This
Right.
wasn't this wasn't the way to help his son. Maybe the way to help his son was to later go in private, help him become better at volleyball and
practice.
actually be good at it.
Yeah.
But anytime we develop skills and talents, anytime we are honest and do things that we know are right, anytime we're hardworking and
Make good choices.
It builds our confidence.
Well, okay.
Our self-confidence.
If-
And so, along this lines, our behavior and how we treat other people and whether or not we have respect for others is a huge component in building that self-confidence.
Right. Well, okay. If self-confidence could be obtained from external sources, then all we would need to do is print out 1 million ribbons and give them to somebody, and they'd have self-confidence through the roof. Hey, here's 1 million ribbons saying what a great person you are. And that person would suddenly have self-confidence, right? Like, if self-confidence came from external sources, then all we would have to do is...
You could buy a kid self-confidence.
Yes. And it's wrong. It's not true. Can't.
But how many wealthy kids do you know who don't have any self-confidence at all? My kids go to a school that has the wealthiest kids in town go to this school. Mm-hmm. Yet most of the kids have very low self-confidence, low self-esteem.
Because they haven't been put in the crucible of making their own decisions and making the right decisions when put in that position.
Yeah, the money, the income has nothing to do with how confident those kids are.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely and
zero
so
influence.
The confidence comes internally. You can be dirt poor and have confident kids.
Yep. Self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence is an internal thing that only comes through doing what you know inherently is right. That's how you develop self-confidence.
Yeah.
There's no other way. It can't be gifted. It can't be given. It can't be bought. It can only come from doing what you know is right. And so that's one of the major perks.
Yeah. So if you're like reading any of these parenting books and they're trying to tell you, you got to tell your child this and that will give them self-esteem.
No.
That is not true. That is not true. Yes, you shouldn't criticize your kid or tear them down.
No, we have a podcast about that.
That's not appropriate. That's horrible for the relationship. But if you want them to develop self-confidence, the components to that have to come from within and from your child making good decisions.
Well, maybe this fits here, but there was that story about the young Louis the 16th or whatever, like 10 years old and whatever, and how he was kidnapped during the coup, and they were subjected him to all sorts of horrible food and vulgar pictures and inappropriate women and all the crassness of the world, and they were trying to break him. Basically, he's like 10 years old or whatever, and he refused. He's like, I'm not going to partake. I'm not going to engage in these things. Blah blah blah. And finally, they're like, dude, what's up with you? This is fun stuff. It's great stuff. What's your problem? And he goes, I will not partake because I was born to be a king. Where he had that inherent self-confidence of making the right choice over and over again. So even at 10 years old, he had that self-confidence to stand up for himself, which in turn bolstered his self-confidence more.
Where he knew he had to make the decisions appropriate for a king.
Right. And so the whole concept behind these behavior reports is to give your kids kind of an accountability to a higher power. And in this case, it's the parents, knowing that they are destined for something greater and something bigger. And so they don't get lost when they're in the middle of a social activity or something and they feel the urge to goof around or disrupt or whatever, or not act like they know they should. There's that, oh, wait, I am destined to be a king. So I like that. Okay. Having said that, I think maybe we need to get into the third section of the podcast, which is how does it work? We covered, kind of the origin story. We covered the why, which is respect of others, and then self-respect. Now let's cover the how does it work? The specifics of how does the behavior report work? And going back to this concept though, Hannah, the reason why they work is twofold. There's this inherent accountability of when you get home, mom and dad are going to look at your behavior report and see if it was signed and that you got all yeses. So there's this inherent accountability that you're going to be giving an accounting of how you behaved during whatever activity. And so there's also kind of this, veiled threat of a punishment.
Well, yeah. If my kids came home and they were being disrespectful to the teacher multiple times, like consecutive times, then we'd be like, okay, hey, if this happens again, you are going to get a fee. Or if this happens again, you're not going to be allowed to go. Or if this happens again, I'm going to come with you.
Oh,
okay.
What a threat that is.
So setting up a consequence that way of, hey, if you continue to be disrespectful to this teacher, that's not fair to them. Mm-hmm. And so either you can't go, you'll have to pay a fee, or I'm going to have to come with you.
Or if it's being paid through by the school, maybe they have to pay for the class themselves.
Yes.
That's very effective.
So there can be some consequences there where, okay, I see this pattern of negative behavior. All right, there's some negative consequences there.
So, but the other reason it worked was because there's also a pending reward. So it's really effective because there's the threat of a punishment, or the promise of a punishment, I guess. But then there's also the promise of a reward. So it's twofold. And this is why the behavior reports are actually movie ticket vouchers. And I said how we changed the name. We don't call it behavior. We don't send our kids off with a thing on a big sheet of paper that says behavior report. We put on there, we call it the movie ticket voucher.
Yeah, so how it worked when the kids were in public school, I would just put any of their activities outside of school on this behavior report. Mm-hmm. And so, you have your dance classes. You've got church. You've got scouts. You've got football. Mm-hmm. Any activities outside of school. I'd put all their activities on this list. I'd give them
like a week worth of like little tiny reports.
Yeah. There were teeny tiny reports. They were all on one piece of paper, and on the top it said movie ticket voucher. And so if they got all yeses on all their activities for that week, they got to watch the movie for free. Mm-hmm. But every no on there, their movie ticket would cost $1. Oh, you got another no? Okay, if you want to watch the movie this weekend, it's going to cost $2 to buy your ticket. Okay? And so the price of the ticket would go up the more no's that they got. And so at the end of the week, we'd be like have a movie and they had a choice. They could pay $5, $6, or they could miss the movie. It was up to them. Mm-hmm. But that's how much their movie ticket cost. But it was free if they had behaved well and carried themselves well that week for all their teachers. And so what was good about this is we noticed when we give them scraps of paper or pieces of paper that said behavior report, the teachers began wondering, does the mom think that they're poorly behaved? And I have the teachers come talk to me and go, Sassy's a really good student. I don't really think she needs this behavior report. Mm-hmm. Like, she's better behaved than everyone else. This is unnecessary. And they thought that if they marked something wrong, she was going to get in trouble. And so they were hesitant to be honest and strict about the behavior. But when you labeled it movie ticket voucher, mm-hmm. all of a sudden they're like, okay, they're getting a movie out of this. And so it actually helped them go, okay, I see what's going on here. They're earning a movie for having good behavior for me. And then they were more strict about, oh yeah, they weren't well behaved, or, they felt more comfortable being honest about the behavior.
Because they knew what the consequence was and what was at stake.
Yeah, that they were trying to earn a movie. Yeah. It wasn't that big of a deal, and it was something they were working towards.
Now, but I need to clarify. This only works if the kids do not have unfettered access to the movie collection and TV shows and YouTube and entertainment and video games. It won't work if they have a movie night. If they're working towards movie night, then it won't hold any water. This reward won't have any power if they have unlimited access to your movie collection, because they're like, I didn't earn that movie. I'll just go watch this movie. Like, it means nothing. So, and we talked about this in our podcast where mom and dad should own and control all the media in the home. And if that sounds extreme, go listen to that podcast, because I think we laid it out pretty clear, a whole bunch of reasons why. But one of them is this, where when your children have to earn some of these privileges, it's one more thing you can leverage to make sure to help them have the behavior that they want. It works really well, but it only works when there's that, when it's a treat, when movies or TV shows are a special treat once a week. And that's what we would do, Hannah, in our family. I think it was Friday night was movie night. Or for a while there, we also did game night, which was really, we'd mix it up, but it was an activity that they wanted to participate in because they didn't have it the rest of the week. And it was a powerful motivator because they didn't have access to it on a regular basis. And so come movie night, and sometimes we would have that big projector and put it up on the wall. And we made a big deal out of it. And we'd pop popcorn and we'd take the kids to the store and maybe get a treat or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. And so to miss out on that, they were like, oh no. And so here they are.
A lot of times if they had no's, they were willing to pay $4 or $5 for it. But, they realized, gosh, I could have gotten this for free.
And here's the brilliant thing is that we would take that money and use it to buy treats.
Yeah.
So it worked really well.
Collect the movie ticket money and then go buy the treats for the movie night.
So it didn't even cost us anything.
Yeah, because there were bound to be a couple of kids who...
But it worked so well because of that, the limits that we put on TV during the rest of the week.
Yeah, and it also, like I said, it worked well to allow them to buy a movie ticket, so you weren't leaving people out. Like, right. Oh, you're left out. We're all going to have fun without you.
No, they had the option.
They had the option. It was just going to cost them. They would have to spend some of their fun money to do it. So it was kind of, it was
very effective.
We honed this this situation. So I said, when the kids were in public school, I would have them do their activities outside of school. But when I had my kids in charter school, which is more of a home-based charter school, I would...
Well, they still had classes outside the home, but we actually had more teachers coming to the home.
Yeah,
and
so
really
with the charter school, you have funding that you can use that funding to hire tutors and stuff to come to your house. So I would hire science teachers to come to our house, or writing teachers, or math teachers. And what I noticed is that the kids were goofing off for these teachers and either fighting or just being silly during the class. And I'm like, wow, I'm paying this teacher, $45 an hour. And my kids aren't taking advantage of this. They could, if they were taking advantage of this, they could get way ahead in math. But they're just kind of wasting the teacher's time from their poor behavior. Pretty soon I realized, I have behavior reports. Duh. Let's put that on the behavior report. And there was this one math teacher where she was a fabulous math teacher, but she was
getting a little flustered with the behavior.
She was getting a little flustered where it was like, I'm here babysitting these kids.
That's what it was. And unfortunately, Hannah, that's the current state of much of education in the United States right now, is the teachers, many of whom are fantastic teachers, but they're just glorified babysitters. They can't actually teach and do what they want to do and what they're really good at. And they prepare these amazing lessons, and they never even get to teach them because there's 1, 2, or more disruptions in the class. And it's very disheartening and frustrating for the teachers.
Yes.
And that was what was happening in our own home. We saw it with our own eyes where we're like, the teacher was getting a little flustered. And so, we started using behavior reports. And
she was more than happy to say, nope.
And she was strict. And the thing is, it only took a couple times. Took a couple of times before the kids realized, oh, wait, this means no movie night. Or this means I'm going to have to pay to go to movie night. And then once the behavior was back on track and everyone was getting yeses all the time, then this great teacher took it up a notch and was like, okay, well, for everyone who has all yeses on their behavior report, I have an activity after class. And this was on her. That we didn't hire her to do these other activities. She was just the math teacher. But on her own initiative, she's like, for those kids who have the good behavior, I have these additional activities after class. And she would do like baseball games and soccer games and these fun
basketball
fun
and
activities.
Or she'd bring like different games.
No, it was Chinese yo-yos.
Yeah,
she taught them how to do Chinese yo-yos.
She'd bring a different activity like every week.
She was really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
But she like once there was a framework there for her to work with, she like was gung ho about it, and it was a lot more effective. And then we combined that with quick points.
Right.
Where we said, okay, not only you get your behavior report signed, but for everything because they were using Khan Academy for math, everything you pass off on Khan Academy, you get quick points. And whoever gets the most gets a bonus quick point. And so pretty soon, instead of passing off one thing or nothing during the hour of math class, instead we started having kids pass off 10 things.
Okay, so
10 topics.
And this goes back to layering rewards, Hannah, where we've got quick points for passing out topics. Then we've got behavior reports for movie night. And then the teacher joined in as well and was like, okay, and then I had this special activity after the class if you have these good behaviors. And it works, that layered rewards concept works so well.
So this teacher, when I hired her, we had been out of a math teacher, and the math teacher before that was didn't quite understand how to do math tutoring and was kind of doing the work for my kids. And so some of them had fallen behind in math. And once we got this math teacher and we got this system in place, they not only caught up with their grade levels, but many of them went beyond their grade level in math. And I was like, wow.
Almost immediately, though. It was amazing.
So, for the money that I'm spending, that we're devoting towards this, it's being used very well. It's not being wasted.
Well, okay.
And they're getting an excellent education.
So the kids were getting a better education. The teacher was enjoying it more, was able to create custom lessons, and she was enjoying it more. And we as the parents we're enjoying it more, all because of
behavior reports.
Just behavior reports. Movie ticket vouchers. So I want to go back, though, to the nuts and bolts, just in case maybe we weren't clear. So this is how it works. When we have it on the website, you download it, and it says at the top of the page, I think it says like movie ticket voucher. And it's got a place for their name, and you print one out every week. And you put the date at the top for what week it is, and you use pen because you don't want the kids to recycle old ones. And it has, I think, 10 little slots, and it has the name of the class, and then it has just 3 simple questions. Were you on time? Were you prepared? And were you respectful? And then a place for the teacher's signature. And that's it. And so for the 10, during the course of the week, maybe they've got football practice 4 times. Well, that's 4 slots, and maybe they've got a dance class twice. That's 2 slots. Maybe they've got a scouting activity or a youth group activity.
Or church on Sunday.
That's maybe 1 or 2 more slots. Maybe they'll fill out 8 of those, 10 slots on the piece of paper. And you ask the teachers to sign in pen, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the week, you just go over it and go, oh, well, and the kids know when they got a no. And they know every no will cost them $1 if they want to watch the movie at the end of the week.
And they don't have to watch the movie. No. They can choose to skip movie night.
It's totally up to them. But more often than not, matter of fact, I don't think, did we ever have anybody just skip?
We did.
Because the fees were too high?
Yeah. Once somebody had like $10 worth and they were like,
What he was
oh,
the key is that we had kids who were like, oh, well, I lost my behavior report. And we're like, oh, well, let's see. You had 8 classes times 3 no's each. Oh, that's $24. Because we're not playing that game. If you lose your behavior report, we assume that you got all no's.
yeah.
And so they got really careful with their behavior reports to make sure that they didn't lose them. And so they were taking pictures of them with the phone and making sure that they had a copy or some sort of representation of, oh, no, I have my behavior report. So one kid, theirs actually I remember it went through the wash and they were crying and they're so distraught. And then they found it and they carefully unfolded it and dried it because these are pieces of paper, but the concept was very powerful and it's a great motivator. And these work really well.
Now, on the movie ticket vouchers that are on our website, it had the 3 questions: on time, prepared, respectful.
Right.
And the reason we changed it to those 3 is because those are the 3 basic behaviors that you want.
Yeah.
However, if your kid is having a specific problem, you can look at what we made and make one of your own.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah, make one of your own and just put a specific thing in there like that addresses whatever behavior it is that they're having an issue with. And the reason we narrowed it down to the 3 questions is because I found that teachers would get annoyed if they had all these behavior reports with 10 different questions on it. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for the teachers of circle, 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 and then their initials.
Yep.
And our kids were responsible to have the pen. They couldn't be like, oh, where's your pen, teacher?
Yeah, so we wouldn't accept anything in pencil.
Yeah, they had to bring a pen with their behavior report, hand it to their teacher, and we made it as quick as possible for the teacher to respond to those questions.
And any dishonesty was a fee and an automatic 3 no's. So it's just very effective.
But that's why it's like that. But you can, it's as you can see, it's not, super complicated. You can adjust it to your needs and make your own.
And I forgot how much I loved these behavior reports until we lost them. There was a brief period of time where we went through some severe financial problems where we basically stopped doing money pants altogether. We
didn't know how.
Yeah.
We didn't know how, and we hadn't figured that out yet. We talk about that in one of our previous podcasts, how that's where we learned to use money pants, but use it just with privileges.
Right.
Whereas we recommend that you use privileges and money combined. But at that point, that's where we realized that experience was what led to us realizing that you need to use money pants in connection with privileges. And that it's way more effective. But for a while, we just were like, oh, we can't do money pants.
Because we had no money.
We have no money. So in that time period, it was funny. We had a teacher, one of our kids' church teachers, and we had just kind of gotten really discouraged and just given up, and things were just kind of getting out of control at home, and all our whole lives just seemed to be out of control.
Unraveling.
Anyway, one of the church teachers, the elderly gentleman, came up to us and he goes, "Where are those papers that you used to have me sign?" He goes, "Those were really good. Those really helped out a lot.
Those worked really well.
Could you do those again?"
Because the behavior had started to slip for one of our children in his class. Because
they weren't accountable. There was no accountability there. And so by popular demand...
We did it again, only this time we attached privileges.
That's where it became the movie ticket. Because before that, like we had mentioned, we were paying our kids $1 for the signed behavior reports, or they were getting a financial reward.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, we can't do that anymore. And that's when we were like, okay, we're going to do this movie night.
And we've made a big deal out of it, and it's been very, very effective for our family.
And so out of tribulation or out of a bad situation, that's where we came up with, oh no, we'll make it a movie ticket thing. Instead of handing out $10 during the week, we'll turn this into a movie ticket voucher.
So I did want to talk though briefly about like what age we use these with. It doesn't really help with 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. It's kind of by about age 4, 5, they can understand.
Well, when they start doing classes.
Well,
I
even
think
church
probably,
classes, 5-year-olds are there in church classes.
I would say 5.
5-ish.
5-ish. But then here's the thing. After about 8th grade, the kids don't want to use those anymore.
Yeah.
So your high schoolers.
It's kind of embarrassing too.
Yeah.
No kid wants to be giving their teacher a behavior report, even if it's called a movie ticket voucher. So we kind of taper off by the time about junior high.
Upper junior high.
School
No, 6th
age.
graders are still fine with it. 7th graders are still okay with it. It's not,
It depends.
They don't want their friends to see them doing it, but they're still willing to get it signed. But high school, they're like, no.
Well, but the thing is, though, is I think a lot of parents, they say, well, I want my kid to be well-behaved no matter what, out of the goodness of their hearts. Yes, and this is a great way, this is a great primer to get them to do that.
It helps them to know what good behavior is. But the thing is this, we created this for a child who was extremely impulsive and the kid who wanted to make everyone laugh and had this sense of humor and just did not have that self-control.
Right.
And
she wanted it, though.
No matter
she wanted that self-control, but she didn't have
She needed support.
Yeah,
though.
she didn't have, you know what? It's a support tool.
It's a support tool.
She didn't have that support of her parents, basically.
Well, and similar to my experience where my mom was my teacher once for a church class, and I was very badly behaved for her. Mm-hmm. And normally I was a well-behaved kid.
You were the best behaved
I
kid.
was like top student, very well behaved at school. But for my mom, I was not behaving, and I didn't have the self-control to be well behaved in this situation, and it was bothering me, but I didn't have the self-control to correct it on my own.
Because the motivator was not there.
Yeah, and I needed a little support there.
And when you're younger, what you need are those external motivators.
Instead of feeling bad about myself, I think it would have been, if I had something like this in place, it would have made me feel more confident. Hey, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I'd go, I feel better about myself and feel more confident about myself instead of having that I'm a brat. And
exactly.
I'm a brat.
What a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
And every kid who acts up and acts out feels that way.
I'm a brat.
And it's an ugly feeling. So this is actually a tool to help not only your kids have better relationships, but to feel better about themselves. And we go back to that, they'll have respect of others, but they'll also have that self-respect.
Yeah. So in high school, they're not going to have these reports anymore.
Yeah.
But about that time, it's time for them to start going, okay, you got to do this on your own now.
Yeah, they have to decide.
And you got to decide. And they're not always going to decide the right thing. But it's at that age,
what?
though.
They're not?
No.
Wait, I thought if you used money pants, everything worked just right. And the kids became these obedient little robots that did whatever you say.
Nope.
No. Once again, let me be very clear. Behavior reports are just a tool. It's another tool in your toolbox of potential motivators to help your kids decide if they want, help your kids become who they want to be.
Right. And so in high school, that's when kids are trying on the different hats, and that's always a fun experience, but they're trying on the different hats and they may, they're going to test that boundary of, okay, but at least they'll have the memory of what it was like to be well behaved.
Right.
And so what I found with our one kid who was extremely impulsive, liked to make people laugh and liked to act out as a kid, we found, okay, these behavior reports helped her with her relationships with her classmates and her teachers. But once high school started and that went away, she went back to acting out in some of her classes. If she didn't like the teacher, she would give them
or she felt controlled.
Or she felt the teacher was controlling. She would
put them in their place.
She would put them through a lot. Okay. And was funny about it, but was a handful even in high school. But what I noticed is high school, that's compulsory education. She had to be there.
Right.
But I noticed when college hit, She kind of did the same thing for some of her college professors until she made up her mind and realized nobody was making her be there.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, she took ownership of her education, and there was a change there. And she started making her own, realizing it was her decision to be in that class, and wanting that good relationship and wanting the good education. And so eventually that does happen, but she had to realize that for herself eventually. But when she decided that's who she wanted to be and that's what she wanted to do, she knew what to do.
Right.
She knew how to behave, and she knew what was possible as far as relationships with the teacher. And so, but at that point, it's a decision, a conscious decision. And she had the self-control and everything to do it. But so if you have a kid who maybe has ADHD, or, is just that kid where they have to have the attention and are maybe a little more impulsive, that's kind of the experience we had as far as the behavior reports go.
It's just a tool. It's not a guarantee that it's going to work. It's just putting the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
And leveraging just more resources to help motivate their family members to be the best that they can be.
But also, the other thing is we did not start using the behavior reports with that particular child until she was in junior high.
Right, which was almost too late to start.
Yeah, and so there's still that question mark of what if we had started that when she was 5?
Probably would have been more effective.
Yeah, where maybe it would have created a habit that maybe by the time of high school, it just would have been such an ingrained habit that she wouldn't think of acting any different way.
Right, because she would have had this internal dialogue going on.
This is what you do.
Right.
This is how you act.
Well, which is why the Kensington finishing school, they start young, and they teach from a very young age these future princes and princesses and upper class how to act, because by the time they're older, it's like second nature to them, and they're like, that's just how you do it.
That's how you act.
And they also know what it feels like, and it feels right, and it feels normal to them.
Yeah.
So I just guess want to kind of recap and just talk about basically the benefits of, we talked about the origin story where we had Trixie and her teacher who was so effective at motivating the kids to have good behavior in his class simply by making these very clear expectations up front and having clear rewards. And then, of course, we had the experience with one of our children, our daughter, who was not having good behavior. And the teacher hated her back. And we were like, well, let's try this. And it turned out it worked really well. And the relationship turned around, and it ended up being, they became best friends. And the teacher was able to make even more elaborate and more involved and better lessons for all the class. And the whole class rose up once, this daughter. Yeah, it was this upward spiral. And then, of course, the second section we talked about was the big why. Why would you want to use these behavior reports? Why would you want to use these movie ticket vouchers? Respect. Aretha Franklin and Chris Rock, you've got to have respect to get respect. And it's a two-way street.
Not only will other people respect your child more, but they'll respect themselves more, and they'll have that self-confidence. And so that's the point of encouraging them and supporting them in this goal to carry themselves well and treat others with respect.
Yeah. Because that whole concept of true self-esteem, true self-confidence comes from doing what you know is right. And that's hard. That's hard to do, but this is a way to help motivate that. And then the third thing we talked about was, kind of the nuts and bolts. How does it work? How do you use these behavior reports? And I think we've kind of covered a lot of different ways you can use these to motivate good behavior with your kids and help them. And maybe, if you go to your kids and say, hey, what do you see? What do you need help with? And they can make their own behavior reports, because they know who they want to be, and they know what they're having a problem with. Maybe they're always late, or maybe they're always mouthing off, or maybe they're being disrespectful to their classmates or whatever. Put that in there and have them accountable, and it works really well. I guess, so to kind of recap, in my mind, there are like 5 major benefits. social skills and grace, better education, respect of others, and, a better reputation. Number 4, future opportunities. And number 5, respect for self. And we've touched on all these, but I just want to go over them real quick. Social skills and grace. Your kids learn to become these little ladies and gentlemen. And what a great thing that is. Number 2, they get a better education. And we said this, where when the kids have the whole class follows the leaders, and the kids who set the tone. And if that's your kid and they're setting the tone, that the tone is respect for the teachers, then the teacher all of a sudden goes, oh, well, I can do all these extra cool activities because I've got such a great, well-behaved class. The teachers then can up their game because they can do more with the students because there are fewer distractions, and the teachers do a better job, and they're motivated to teach because they're not babysitting. The number 3 benefit was the respect of others and developing that good reputation, where whether it's from the teachers or from their leaders or their future bosses or future colleagues, they will all have the respect of your children, where they're like, oh, that child is respectful. That child arrives on time. They're prepared and they're respectful to those around them. And what a great reputation to walk into any room having that reputation.
Yeah, and people start to trust them and go, oh yeah, you can count on this person, and yes, they know how to carry themselves. Trust is that magic word that goes a long way, which leads into number 4. The number 4 benefit was future opportunities. When you have that level of trust, you're going to have more opportunities to do things that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do, because if you don't have that trust, are you really going to take a kid river rafting? Are you really going to take them on your trip to Europe? Are you really going to take them on? Disaster.
You're going to take them to the trip to the zoo? Are you going to trust them to babysit your children? But once they have that level of trust and that respect, the windows, the opportunities blossom.
And then the high school students who realize their senior year of,
right, letters of recommendation.
I was supposed to get those letters of recommendation in order to go to the college I was hoping to go to, or to get the scholarships I was hoping to get. Oh, goodness about that.
Yeah.
I wish I had known this 3 years ago when I was when I was a freshman and a sophomore and a junior, and had been building those relationships up.
Exactly. And then the 5th benefit, and I think we've really hit this hard, is self-respect, where when you're holding yourself well, you have that tremendous confidence because you've been making good choices even when your parents aren't around. And that builds that maturity. And you can't deny it because you've met those kids. And you've seen those kids where they're like so mature for their age because they're always and they seem to always be making that right decision. That's what you want for your children. And that's what your children want.
Yeah, making good decisions on your own. And that's the ultimate goal, is for them to make good decisions on their own. But this is just kind of the bridge.
Yep.
To
get them there.
To hopefully get them there. Yep. And in the end, though, it is their choice.
Yep.
But this creates a path for them and a support system for them to get there if they ultimately decide that that's who they want to be.
And that's it. Those are kind of all of our thoughts on how to use behavior reports and movie ticket vouchers to motivate kids to make good decisions on their own. If you like what you hear in this podcast, please tell your friends. They may want to listen to. We may share an idea or a thought or a solution to a problem they're currently facing. And if you have a suggestion for a future podcast, go to our website. Under support, click Contact Us and send us an email, and we will get right on it. And that's it for today. Enjoy some of Falcon Jasper's Maximum Musical Mayhem.
Oh, no. No, we're not doing Falcon Jasper. We have a new composer. We have a new composer on the scene.
Enjoy one of our fans who wrote a theme song for the Money Pants Superpower Hour. We'll see you next time.
Oh, yeah. You know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for the Superpower Hour.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Money Pants.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Money Pants.
Come
We'll
on.
ignite greatness in you.
In me?
Unlock your superpowers.
Ooh, I have
With
superpowers?
Money Pants. talking about now.
Talk about
Cash,
what? Cash?
money.
Yeah, money. I like money.
It's time for you.
For me, I'm so excited.
Money pants.
Hey, give me some money pants.
Yeah, money pants.
I want money pants.
Every day. All I want is more money pants.
Me too.
Money pants.
Hey, give me some money pants.
Yeah.
I want money pants.
Money pants.
Money pants, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Money pants.